Kai, what would you say is the number one concern for retirees besides outliving their money?
One word: inflation. Everyone's worried about inflation because if you have $100,000, let's say, in income per year to retire now, 20 to 30 years later, that $100,000 is only worth $50,000. Plus, many now are living even longer, even past 100 years old. Wealthy or poor, even if we have enough income, everyone is worried about inflation. Inflation is guaranteed to come and eat away at our portfolio or our income sooner or later.
Right. Today we'll discuss the three main methods people commonly use to curb inflation and the inherent problems with each one. And I'm sure many of you are eager to know if there is a guaranteed solution against inflation.
We'll also discuss our client's favorite strategy later in this video called laddering out, and how that can guarantee against inflation.
I know our clients have heard about laddering bonds, CDs, and MYGA annuities, but I don't think anyone has heard of the concept of laddering out.
Yes, whatever you know about laddering, throw that idea in the trash. The laddering out strategy is completely different and can guarantee against inflation for the following 10 to 20 years. But we will then combine the laddering out strategy with another strategy to guarantee against inflation into your 90s and even past 100. So pay close attention to this video. Hi, I'm Kai.
And I'm Ann, where our goal is to help you retire healthy and wealthy.
And don't forget about Gracie, our retirement puppy, and her two other siblings listening to me talk about retirement.
Or just waiting for a treat.
Yeah. Now, many of you who have followed us for a while now or called us know that we're not afraid to confront accepted so-called conventional wisdom in retirement planning. For example, regarding inflation, what we've been taught the most in college and by financial experts is to invest our money in mutual funds and index funds to keep up with or beat inflation.
While you're working, you can afford to ride the ups and downs of the market. But when it becomes a challenge is when you lose your working income in retirement and you're pulling money out each month while the market is in recession or recovering from a recession.
That's right, Ann. And that's why one of our first videos we made was on that very risk, called the sequence of returns risk. In that video, we discussed two people, Susan and Joe, that both started with the exact same principle of $500,000. They invested in the same S&P. They were taking out the same 4% withdrawal. Neither one of them had an annuity. But for over 20 years, you'll see how Susan ended up with almost $1.7 million, while Joe ended up with $362,000. And at one point, almost lost everything.
Yes, as you can see, investing your money in the market could help with inflation, but it's not a guarantee, and it is especially risky to withdraw money during a recession or market correction. The second most common method to keep up with inflation is by investing in T-bills, CDs, or MYGA annuities. Kai, many clients have been advised to use these investments, especially since the rates are currently quite high, between 4% to 5%.
Well, what you said, Ann, is the risk. The rates are high now.
But you could lock it in for 5 to 10 years with a MYGA annuity, right?
True, but what will the rates be once the CD or the MYGA matures? And you know that since we started 20 years ago, the interest rates back then were pretty much just as high as they are now. But then from 2009 to 2022, what happened? Do you remember?
The CD rates were 1% to 2%, and the MYGAs were 2% to 3%.
Exactly. And the government cannot keep the rates high for too long, or it'll damage the economy. High rates are generally used to slow the growth of the economy, while low rates are meant to stimulate the economy. As a result, retirees often have to endure lower rates for a period extended of time.
True. And due to the high interest rates, people are having a hard time buying their first homes, and small businesses are barely surviving or closing their doors because the rates are so high. And really, we could say there's a sequence of return risks with MYGAs and CDs as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Withdrawing more than you're earning can deplete your savings account or your MYGA or CD accounts, and this is especially problematic if the rates are too low.
Right. We need to remember that when we are in retirement, we have no choice but to keep taking income no matter what the interest rates are or what the market is doing.
Yes, imagine if you're in your 70s or 80s, and during that entire 13 years, the MYGA rates and CD rates were only 1% to 3%. And if that happened to you, you'd be living on beans or rice, or you'll completely deplete your account.
So we discussed all these different investments as tools to beat or keep up with inflation. They can all help, but the inherent issue is that there's no guarantee, especially while one is drawing income. Well, the third concept people have heard about is laddering with income annuities like SPIAs, DIAs, and hybrid pensions.
Now, first to be clear though, Ann, you're referring to the income annuities that have a high contractual guarantee, not one of those hypothetical maybes, right?
Right. Yes, the ones that pay around a contractual guarantee of 6% to 15% or more in retirement.
Now, those do have a strong contractual guarantee, but the number one problem is that most of those income annuities are what we call flat and level annuities. They offer an excellent starting income, but the income does not increase after you start the income. There are income annuities that have CPI adjustments, which we made a video on that, but the income typically starts around 30% or so less per month.
So is this why our Social Security is so small?
Exactly. Our Social Security is an annuity with CPI adjustment as well. If there wasn't a CPI adjustment built in, then your income would be around maybe 30% more.
So because the high contractual income riders do not go up after you start the income, isn't this why advisors and broker-dealers like Fisher Investments tell people to stay away from annuities or to just buy a small annuity? You might have income starting at $100,000 per year, but after 20 years or so, that income, due to inflation, might be only worth $50,000 per year.
And yes, they are right on that fact. But there is a strategy with annuities that advisors and broker dealers don't want you to know, and this is why people call us.
So the strategy to beat inflation that you're referring to when people call us is called laddering out. Is that correct?
Yes. And anything that you know about laddering CD or bonds, just toss that in the trash. And no, we're not talking about staggering annuities by purchasing them at a later time or different years later on. That's called laddering in.
Now, before we discuss how laddering out versus in works, the only way to guarantee against inflation is through a hybrid pension annuity or a deferred income annuity. But with DIA annuities, you lock up your money and you have no way to surrender them. But with hybrid pensions, you still own your principal. So if you change your mind, the money remains under your control. Additionally, if you pass away, the funds go to your beneficiaries. To learn more about hybrid pensions and the different annuities, click this card up here or look for a link in the description for the entire playlist. Kai, can you now explain the difference between laddering out versus laddering in and how that guarantees against inflation?
Sure. Just imagine if your Social Security allowed you to start income at 3 different times between, say, age 62 to age 70. We all know that the longer you wait, the higher your income. So picture having one income coming out of Social Security at age 62, just to give you a little extra cash. Another income coming out at age 65 to cover your Medicare expenses. And then laddering the last one to come out at age 70. Now, this laddering out strategy lets you to enjoy money earlier while maximizing the payouts you receive later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So the key to laddering out is putting a larger deposit in while you're younger, right?
Exactly. But we're not saying to put all or most of your retirement into a hybrid pension. The key is to submit separate applications rather than buying one lump sum annuity.
And I know that's one of your biggest pet peeves.
Oh, absolutely. I hate seeing the larger annuities sold and the advisor never broke them up into different annuities or different contracts. When a large annuity is all in one, it limits your flexibility. So the retirees either start with their income early and they're stuck with that smaller payout, or they have to suffer and eat beans and rice while they're deferring their hybrid pension. Breaking up the annuity into different contracts can provide more control and better match income needs over time.
So do you mean ladder with different companies?
You could, but typically this can also be done with the same company as well. The key is, again, to submit separate applications so that when they issue your contract, you will have different policy numbers. So when you call customer service to activate your income, they will ask you, which one do you want to start? And you can say start 1, 2, or start them all. Make sense?
Kai, can you really keep up with or beat inflation by laddering out? And if so, why don't more people know about this?
Well, let's start off by answering the second question you mentioned. The advisors don't teach this because they are either, I hate to say it, just too lazy or don't know how to plan it correctly. We get paid the same commission by the insurance company, again, not from you guys, but whether you ladder or don't ladder. But as explained earlier, you must submit separate applications for each ladder with most companies. So it's extra work for us, And that's why most advisors don't bring it up.
So do you really get that much of a payout if you ladder?
Well, to maximize your payout with Social Security, for example, or any pensions or hybrid pensions, you must combine the following: older age plus years of deferral. Look at this chart, for example. If you start at 55 and defer ladder 1, for example, to age 60, you'll get 8.9% of your original deposit. And if you defer ladder 2 to age 63, you'll get 11.6%. And by deferring ladder 3 to age 65, you'll get 14.9%.
And if someone started at 60 and they defer ladder 1 to 65, they get 9.7% of their original deposit. Deferring ladder 2 to 68, they get 12.5%. And then deferring ladder 3 to age 70, they get 14.9%.
And that's a contractual lifetime guarantee, folks. These are not hypothetical maybes. And all these percentages that we also mentioned are pretty much the top carriers. Of course, it'll vary based on state and also your age. Now, be careful though. This laddering out strategy may seem simple, but to minimize taxes, you may want to ladder by combining, for example, qualified IRAs and non-qualified IRA assets.
And unfortunately, most annuity salespeople are just interested in selling you an annuity.
Right. And on the other end of the spectrum, most financial advisors rather focus on investments and do not believe in annuities at all, or they just say to have only a small portion. So this high-level laddering out strategy is rarely ever taught.
And we'll be making a video on how to combine laddering and minimizing taxes. So make sure you subscribe so you'll be the first to be notified when we release that video.
If you're watching this for the first time, I'd like to ask, are you surprised to see how high the payouts are by deferring your hybrid pension? We're talking about the 10 to 15% here. Was that your first time? And let us know in the comments below if you would like to know what your payout numbers might look like with a hybrid pension.
And that's why we hope you'll share these videos and most importantly, click the like button. This really helps YouTube automatically show these videos to others, which not only helps our channel grow, but also informs others who may not have learned about these strategies yet. Now, Kai, some will ask us, how does that cover inflation for longer than just 10 to 20 years?
Well, there are two ways to cover inflation for 20 to 30 years or even longer. One is by front-loading the laddering out strategy, since you know that you'll be getting around 10 to 15% for life. So you start with a larger deposit to receive more income than you actually need. This approach puts you ahead of inflation and provides a solid foundation for the second strategy. So the second strategy is laddering in with smaller annuities. After covering all your expenses and lifestyle needs with the first strategy of laddering out, you can then afford to ladder in with smaller annuities, like $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 or so in the future years. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I know these smaller amounts aren't typically worth the time for many advisors, and that's why they won't discuss laddering in small annuities. But laddering in small amounts can be a guaranteed hedge against inflation for decades. So really, our viewers should understand that the laddering in strategy works the best if they laddered out correctly.
Exactly. Now, here's a key point. If you did not ladder out enough to cover your lifestyle, you won't have the flexibility to wait 5 to 10 years on each of the smaller laddered in annuities. However, if you have sufficient or more than enough with the laddering out strategy, then you won't need to depend on the smaller amounts from each ladder in annuity. So in that case, waiting 5 to 10 years to fully maximize each small ladder is not really a big deal.
And to Kai's point, take a look at how high your payout could be with a laddering in later on for inflation. Now, from 70 to 80 years old, you'll get 20%. From 75 to 85 years old, you'll get 26.2%. And look at this, from 80 to 90 years old, the payout is a whopping 35%.
And again, these are contractual payout, friends. And I know some of you skeptics out there think there's no way insurance companies can guarantee this kind of return or ROI. None of these percentages that we're talking about are ROI returns or return of your investments. These are payouts. No insurance company can even guarantee 1 or 2%. No bank can even guarantee 1 or 2% interest. So again, these are not interest earned. These are lifetime payouts. These are formulas, calculations, statistics, actuaries, all built in. Okay, so now I know some of you skeptics might also be thinking that you might be gone by that time, but remember these ladder in annuities are extra money that you don't need. If you ladder out correctly, you already have more than enough. That's the key. Plus, these are small amounts designed to cover inflation. For example, my grandmother lived to 97 years old. Now, if I live to 97 and receive 35% payout at age 80, I would get my money back in less than 3 years of payments. And I'm hopeful that both of us will live past 100 years old.
Yes. Let's hope so. Regarding living past 100, this is a real possibility. According to Pew Research, centenarians are projected to quadruple in number by 2054.
That's a lot.
The Washington Post reports that the United Nations projects there will be 3.7 million centenarians alive by 2050. The article even notes living to 100 complicates retirement, highlighting the importance of planning for a long life.
When people understand how important it is to ladder out correctly with 10 to 15% payouts or more, they soon realize why we will own 20 to 30 smaller laddering in hybrid pension annuities throughout our lifetime. And by first implementing our laddering out strategy, laying that strong foundation, we will be able to maximize each of the small hybrid pension annuities with payouts, as we discussed, of 20 to 30% or more.
Absolutely. I'd rather guarantee against inflation with these contractual payouts than rely on hypothetical returns from mutual funds, CDs, or MYGA annuities.
I agree.
But the next question our clients often ask about this laddering out strategy is, how can I wait that long? I need to start my income sooner than that.
And if you have that same question, click on this video here or call us to find out if these laddering strategies will work for you.
And click up here for the hybrid pension playlist.